Hi, welcome back here to the What's Right show. And I say welcome back because, of course, yesterday we had so much to cover and I didn't get to everything. So I'm glad to be back behind the What's Right show microphone today. My goodness, Robbie, what a just nonstop flow of news, of updates, of positive developments. I just can't get enough of it. Before, friends, we get to everything here, I want to pause a moment and recognize producer Robbie for his birthday. It's actually today. I jumped the gun yesterday on Twitter, on X, at What's Right Sam, is where you can find me. Wished Robbie an early happy birthday. But in fact, I stand corrected. His birthday is today. And I'm always a little bit ahead on this, Robbie, so forgive me. Next year, I promise I'll be spot on. Happy birthday, my friend, and I hope you're having a great day. So I think you've heard the news now that RFK Jr. has, well, not breezed, but has gotten through and been confirmed by the entirety of the Senate. The lone dissenting Republican voice is the little turtle man, Mitch McConnell. And McConnell, you know, it's funny because I was digging through some archival tweets, and it wasn't that long ago that Trump was endorsing Mitch McConnell for re-election. Back when he was president, the first time around, Trump viewed McConnell as an ally. And he went as far as putting his wife, Ms. Chow, in a top government post. Now, I don't think Mitch McConnell ever saw himself as an ally of Trump's. I think he was as much of an opponent of Trump and the Trump agenda, the MAGA agenda, as many Democrats. So I think Trump has woken up now, obviously after the disastrous end of his first term in office and all the backstabbers around him doing precious little to help. In fact, doing much of everything to absolutely destroy him. Trump now realizes Mitch McConnell is a loser, and Mitch doesn't have to, he can come out and just do it because he doesn't know what he's doing. So it's the staff that's, carefully putting his, finger on the vote button. Look, a couple of things. First off, a number of you have asked what happens if Mitch McConnell drops dead. It's not nice. We don't wish that on anyone, but it seems to me that Mitch is not doing well, and he also, is a critical vote. We're not getting the vote. I joke we have 52 Republican senators at best, plus Mitch McConnell. But, he does represent the state of Kentucky. And the state of Kentucky is very red. Oddly, though, Kentucky has a Democrat governor, Andy Beshear. So what happens if Mitch McConnell steps down, is forced to resign his seat? Because, of course, I think he's not obviously capable of fulfilling his duties, but he would have to be ousted by Republicans. They're not going to do that. So as long as his heart is beating and his eyes open for a few hours of the day, Mitch McConnell remains in. So what happens, if he were to step down? And the short answer is that the Republicans in Kentucky, in the legislature is 100%, fully Republican in both chambers. They have been already working on this. And they passed a bill that really handcuffs the governor. It takes the responsibility for naming a replacement out of the governor's hands. Just before this bill passed, the rule was that the governor had to pick from a panel of Republicans that were proposed basically by the Republican Party of the state. And the Republicans didn't even like that because that's how little they trust the governor. They thought that he was going to put in another rhino. So the Republicans in the legislature passed this new bill, And it's important because a lot of you are asking, what happens, right? What happens if Mitch McConnell goes away? Well, they're going to have a special election very quickly. It's not exactly clear to me on the timing, but it seems to me about plus minus 90 days. Very short, quick election. And then that person, whoever is elected, serves only the balance of Mitch McConnell's term, which I think expires in 26. So it's a very short period of time. Verify that, Robbie. I think it's 26, not 28. Regardless, it's just the balance of Mitch McConnell's term. So that's the setup there. And it would be very likely that whoever replaces McConnell is going to be more conservative, certainly, than McConnell is. Okay, I need to say one more thing about the U.S. Senate. With all of these nominations so far getting through, a big one is coming up soon. Kash Patel has advanced out of the committee and is headed toward the big vote. I think Kash Patel is the last controversial nominee that hasn't been confirmed. And I have to hesitate to do this. I'm going to find some wood here and knock a little bit here during the break. I have to say it though. Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, I didn't have high hopes, but he has gotten these people through. He got RFK Jr. through. He got Pam Bondi through. Republicans did, in fact, get Tulsi Gabbard confirmed. This is all really good news, and Thune deserves credit. I've been critical of him. He was not my pick for Senate Majority Leader, but these were not easy gets. And the fact is that for the most part, wrangling those two beezies from, Alaska, Murkowski, and Susan Collins in Maine was probably not the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to give Thune credit. Well, we'll see what happens with Kash Patel. Tomorrow I might be eating my words. We'll see. But anyway, had to point that out. By the way, Murkowski, of no relation to me, your host of the What's Right show, Sam Mirejovsky. We're not related. Okay. So Trump, in the meantime, is continuing with his agenda, and people seem to like it. Rasmussen reports have published, just 4 hours ago, that the right direction is at a record high. Previously, this high in January 2017, 47%. So, and it's the first time in their polling that right direction exceeds wrong track. Okay, so more people now feel better about the direction of the country than feel negatively about it. This is huge. And it sets up a very interesting conversation about what the hell the Democrats are doing. It's going to be a theme here throughout a number of our shows as I struggle to understand what these morons are doing. See, Elon Musk is popular. The concept of DOGE, in other words, refining the unwieldy governmental bureaucracy, saving money, balancing the budget, etc. Those are all things that are very popular with the American public. So I'm telling you, when you see these Democrats, and I know it's posturing, I understand that. I get that politics are, that it's a little bit of kabuki theater. Okay, you're playing a game and attempting to put your narratives out there, right? But it's not going after Musk in the way that the Democrats are. And actually I heard Robbie, this was fabulous. I heard Chuck Schumer say something to the effect of in a press conference that Musk and Trump are going after everything we hold dear. And it wasn't exactly, but that's how it was. No, it was something almost exactly those words. I'll find it here during the break, what it was that he said precisely. But my point is, I think it was a slip up. I think it's exactly right. I think that Musk and Trump, the DOGE team, are getting at the holy grail of the establishment Democrats and Republicans, the swamp monster politicians in D.C., that he's discovered their slush fund. He's eliminating it. He's driving a stake through the heart of the beast that has been our swamp, deep state, whatever you want to call it, permanent bureaucratic class that's been suffocating our country and frankly resisting, right, the will of the people for any kind of meaningful change. It's absolutely a beautiful thing to see. And the Democrats continue to rail against this, revealing their true nature. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Moments ago in the Oval Office, CNN's Caitlin Collins, who's really just an insufferable info babe, kind of a vacuous reporter, frankly, asked Trump what he thinks of Mitch McConnell voting against RFK. That the question was, do you think that, that he's voting, that Mitch McConnell voted against RFK because of RFK Jr.'s conspiracy theories? Sam Mirejovsky here, Sam Mirejovsky here, listening to the What's Right show. Let me tell you, here's the answer, and it's just beautiful. Trump, he's just sitting at his desk. Fingers are, interlaced. He's just looking at Caitlin Collins like she's a moron. And this is his answer.
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that he wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. Mitch McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even, and that's saying a lot. But the fact is that he raised money and he gave a lot of money to senators, and so he had a little loyalty based on the fact that as leader you could raise a lot of money. Senators would call me and they say, he wants to give me 25 million. Can I take it? I'd say, take the money. Take the money. But he engendered a certain amount of, I don't even call it loyalty. He was able to get votes. But I was the one that got him to drop out of the leadership position, so he can't love me. But he's not voting against Bobby. He's voting against me, but that's all right. He endorsed me. Mitch, do you know that Mitch endorsed me, right?
Well, he did.
You think that was easy? What?
He had polio, obviously, and
I don't know. I don't know anything about he had polio.
He had polio.
He had polio.
Trump's like, I don't know if he had polio.
I have no idea if he had polio. All I can tell you about him is that he shouldn't have been leader. He knows that. He voted against Bobby. He votes against almost everything now. He's a very bitter guy, and we have a very strong party, and he's almost not even really a very powerful member. I'd say he's not he's lost his power, and it's affected his vote.
So that's, by the way, point I want to make here is this is the new Trump. I mean, it's not as combative. I mean, he told Caitlin Collins, even you could raise money if you're sitting in the office of Senate Majority Leader, head of the Senate Republicans. You could raise money too. That was a little snide, but he's very calm. If you notice, it's like the new Trump. He's just very like, I feel sorry for Mitch. He's a bitter old man. Da 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 da. And if you play, really, if you go back 8 years and you play tapes of Trump, I mean, they're great. It's the reason we all fell in love with him. But it's far more acerbic, more biting than I think he is now. I think he's just mellowed out a lot. And I think 2 failed assassination attempts might have something to do with it. Man's been through hell. Has come out the better end, out the other end, a better man. So that's just playing that there for color reference to Mitch McConnell voting no on basically anything that Trump does. Might as well be a Democrat at this point, okay? As I say, 52 Republicans in the Senate plus Mitch McConnell. All right. So what the hell are the Democrats doing, right? Moving on from bad Republicans, let's go to the Democratic Party. They're lost. Like, they're objectively lost. And some of them are starting to show some glimmers of acceptance. We were going yesterday through the stages of grief, and I think it's an appropriate analysis of the state of a Democrat's spirits right now. But you then have these moments of absolute insanity. For example, I have to play this clip. Oh my gosh, Robbie, what the hell was he thinking? Robert Garcia, who's a Democrat from California, congressman, called Elon Musk the D word for a male member. Okay, that's what he called him. And it was so bad that even CNN, Breonna Keeler, was like, is that really good? Is that really a good idea? How effective is it to call call Elon Musk, a DI, what?
I want to hear why, but do you think that calling Elon Musk a dick is effective messaging for confronting what is a potentially irreversible transformation of the U.S. government?
Well, he is a dick, and I think that he's also harming the American public in an enormous way. And what I think is really important, and what the American public want, is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. This is an actual fight for democracy, for the future of this country, and it's important to push back.
What? Actual weapons? Is this guy an idiot? I mean, I know the answer to that. But who says that? It's a member of Congress, for Pete's sake. And may I remind you that there were congressional Republicans hit by an actual assassin, bullets flying through the air at a baseball game, inspired precisely by this kind of rhetoric. Now, he has the right to say it. Okay, I'm a free speech absolutist. So for me, I think this is good. At least we all see, the masses coming off, and we see who these people really are. But the Democratic Party is not about democracy. They would love, they're saying it out loud, folks. They will literally, they would literally bring weapons and use actual bullets to stop Elon Musk, to stop DOGE, and to stop Trump. You see these signs up in liberal areas. I saw one up in Portland where it was, a sign over a freeway overpass saying, hey, who's going to kill Elon Musk? ? Like that's political discourse. That's a political slogan. That's bravery on the part of on the Democratic Party. And Dean Phillips, who tried running against Biden for the 24 nomination, I think you remember him, common sense Democrat, is one of the few Democrats who really sees how bad this is and how bad this look is, and that maybe the Democrats ought to reverse course.
Unfortunately, Democrats are only focused on one thing right now, Mr. Musk. The fact of the matter, he's quite popular. He has the largest platform in human history, which is, of course, Twitter/X. And I think we're missing the boat as Democrats. And all I'm saying is that sometimes it's better to join them and actually play a role in how the strategy works, rather than so pathetically, frankly, try to combat something that clearly is a steamroller, and Democrats are being steamrolled.
I couldn't say it better myself. So there are some voices of sanity / voices that have some acceptance in the 5 stages of grief. Getting there. Okay. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. See you on the other side of this break. Hi, welcome back. The What's Right show is brought to you by the only personal injury law firm to trust if you've been in an accident. Sam & Ash Injury Law, that's the name, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, friends, some more good news. Apple Maps overnight updated their systems and have listed or renamed the body of water between the U.S. and Mexico, Gulf of America. So there it is. Apple Maps, Apple dragging their feet on that. And of course, on the same day that Apple gets on board, Google got sued by Mexico, or at least there's a threat of a lawsuit. The president of Mexico says that she intends to sue Google over the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico. What? I'm thinking like, huh? Does Mexico have standing to even do that? I'm trying to think. I mean, the body of water, I mean, they don't have, they don't have any greater claim to the Gulf of America than we do. But, we're the bigger country, and, these map companies are American companies. They're based in America. They can call it whatever the hell they want. And there are places, by the way, like this in the world where, disputed territories named differently depending on which country you're talking to. So, the Gulf, as far as I'm concerned, Mexico can call it whatever the hell they want, and every Mexican map can have Gulf of Mexico on it. It's no problem. Not very many people will use Mexican maps. I guess the coyotes who are smuggling or trying to smuggle people into the U.S., they'll go, oh yeah, the water over there, it's the Gulf of Mexico. Woo! Just crazy. Tragic news in Munich. Another nice person, nice guy who came from Afghanistan. He was, I saw a report today that the guy, he got into his little Mini Cooper and he drove over a bunch of people, killing one, and a number of people are fighting for their lives. This is absolutely horrifying. 28 people, including children, are injured. And it comes just as the Munich Security Conference starting tomorrow. J.D. Vance is going to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky and some other European counterparts. So this is unsettling, to say the least. All this is so predictable. The guy that did this was initially denied asylum, but the hopelessly idiotic German government, which hopefully in 2 weeks will be no more after the election, rolls out the red carpet to all of these dangerous people in the name of, I guess, political correctness, compassion, etc., etc. It's really tragic. So this is not going to change. Nothing is going to change. Kabul. He was born in Kabul. His name is Farhad N. They haven't even named it. He posted Islamist content on social media before driving into a crowd. And like I said, ran over at least 29 people. Absolutely horrifying. All right. So, I'm just pointing out AFD. That's the party, and it's the party that of course Musk is supporting them in Germany, right? He says, look, we've got to get this. We've got to make Germany great again. And a lot of Americans here are wondering, well, what the hell is this all about? Let's focus on one thing at a time. Please, Elon, stick with DOGE, right? Stay focused on fixing America. Well, don't worry. By the way, minutes ago, DOGE agents were seen entering IRS headquarters. Here we go. So don't worry. They're working hard. They're getting stuff done. But Elon Musk has been very supportive of Germany. There's a reason for this, because this rot, this globalist liberal rot, has to be eradicated everywhere that it is. It has to be soundly and resolutely defeated. And it has to be defeated in Europe. And there's really only two options from my vantage point, right? Because the EU is a nasty thorn in the side of the U.S. It is a nasty bunch of jerks, okay? And they're very left-wing. They're very authoritarian. They're against free speech. And they create all sorts of problems for us. The EU is terrible, right? You think of all of the restrictions that they place on American companies like Facebook, like Twitter, now X, Google, etc. I mean, they are just ninnies. All they do is sit around in the European Parliament in Brussels, coming up with ways to regulate business. And it affects all of us, right? And there's a lot of ways where it actually affects us here in the U.S. And then take Great Britain, for example. You know, we didn't realize this. There's an effort underway in Great Britain right now, Keir Starmer's government, which also needs to be defeated. They actually are trying to get Apple to give them access, root access into every single phone, every single iCloud account anywhere in the world. You want the British government to have access to your iCloud library, to your texts, right? To your iMessages, to your photos, to whatever documents you have stored there. I mean, I have I have letters that I write, attorney-client protected material there. And the British security people want access to it. So we have to, there's a fight right now. The globalists, by definition, sought to push their agenda everywhere they could in the West. And we're not going to succeed in every single country, but there are certain key stakeholder countries that really need to come around in order for our revolution of empowering individuals, freedom of speech, free enterprise, prosperity, that it reigns supreme in the Western world. And so that's why this matters. So we'll keep an eye on that. Plus, look at this. I mean, they let the terrorists into Germany, and then they'll get much more easily into the U.S. from there, right? Harder to get from Kabul to New York City, a little bit easier to go from Frankfurt or Munich into the U.S. So these are all important things. Now, I saw finally, folks, I've got to get to this too. I saw and read through the lawsuit. It is, in fact, a lawsuit, a civil suit that the DOJ, Pam Bondi and her team, filed against the state of New York, against the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, against Letitia James, the attorney general, and against the guy running the DMV. And this lawsuit, so yesterday it wasn't clear because during the program, Pam Bondi had her press conference. And in the press conference, she said that, charges were filed. Now, and I'll really just quickly explain this for those that might not know. And it's a very good question, by the way, if you're wondering what the difference is. Civil charges, right, is a civil lawsuit. You don't get jail time in that, right? There's what she is looking for is for the courts to come in and enjoin or stop, basically tell New York State, you can no longer do all of these things that you are doing to prevent federal law enforcement from finding, identifying, arresting illegal immigrants. That's where this is. And they cite in it, right, violations of the Supremacy Clause, which means basically the law of the federal laws set by Congress are supreme, are above laws passed by the state. And, you know, I read through this thing, and it's, of course, I know how sanctuary states operate. I understand it. I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, so I'm aware in California this was all normal stuff. But, you know, they actually, the state of New York, and I did not know this, they have a system, a DMV system, that if the feds, if ICE, for example, comes in and pulls an illegal immigrant's report, you know, for example, from their ID, that the DMV is required by operation of law to notify that person. So, you know, Billy Bob, okay, illegal immigrant in the country, ICE comes in, says, hey, we'd like his record, we'd like, you know, his address, everything, give us, because that's on a state database, right? So they come in with a warrant, get it. They literally, the state of New York would have to. The people working at the DMV are obligated to let the person know, hey, Billy Bob, hi, this is, you know, Sue calling from the DMV here in Albany, and sorry, but we have to let you know that the you know, ICE has just called us and has just pulled your record. Just heads up. They are alerting potentially gang members, potentially violent criminals, potentially murderers, rapists, burglars, thugs, helping them get away from law enforcement. It's disgusting. This is awful stuff. And, you know, I read through this and I think, you know, it's a slam dunk case. So what they are looking to do to get out of this lawsuit is have, you know, the court tell New York, you can't do this. Strike down these laws that New York has passed as being unconstitutional, meaning they are at odds with federal law, and the Constitution says that when that happens, federal law, you know, decides. So here we go. Now, point of fact, when you have a lawsuit, one of the first things that happens, you file a lawsuit, everybody gets served. Once the defendants all have notice of the lawsuit, then what happens is you go through a process of discovery. Now, I don't know how that's going to operate here, but presumably they will be able to get even more information than they already have. And I hope, I'm going to be honest with you folks, I hope that if they find this, the facts that they allege here in this lawsuit, if they find them and can prove them to be true, and find perhaps that Kathy Hochul, Letitia James, and other agents of the state, officers of the state, agents of the state, have acted in defiance of federal law, have harbored illegal immigrants, have prevented federal law enforcement from seizing dangerous criminal aliens, then I think that Trump's Department of Justice needs to prosecute them criminally. And in a criminal case, you can get fines and penalties, of course. Yeah, there's fines, monetary fines in a criminal case, but really what you're going for is jail time, incarceration. And yes, every single one of these fanatics, open border fanatics, that have willfully, deliberately sought to conceal and harbor illegal immigrants ought to be prosecuted. And you start, you know, I mean, get 20 high-profile people, arrest them, come in, give them the January 6th treatment, no knock, 6 a.m. in the morning, SWAT team from the FBI, pull them out of bed, arrest them, handcuff them, take them in, fingerprint them, book them. You know, I think this horse crap's going to come to a screeching halt pretty quickly. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. I'd like to point out that the a concept here of Trump's Department of Justice, the new Attorney General, going after and prosecuting certain high-level Democrats shouldn't be limited to just those that aided and abetted criminal aliens. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Lee Zeldin came out and said that basically Biden's staff on their way out the door stashed about $20 billion in a private bank account. Now, look, I can't tell you if this is true or not. I generally trust Lee Zeldin, and I know him, and I think he's a straight shooting guy. So if Lee says this, it's probably true. But let's work in the hypothetical. If this is true, the $20 billion question is, why would you need to put government money into a private, account somewhere? And it just seems like, and Zeldin, he says, he calls it, they're tossing gold bars off the Titanic, meaning the analogy, of course, that the ship was sinking, right? Biden was losing, Harris was losing the race. It became clear that the Biden-Harris team was going to be shown the door quickly. Trump wins the election. And in the final hours of the Biden presidency, they're doing all of this stuff there to try to hide money and squirrel away money so they could keep funding their pet projects. Apparently, there's a video that was circulated 2 months ago. When would that have been? December? Regardless, sometime after the election, when the jig was clearly up, featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were literally tossing gold bars off the Titanic, rushing to get billions and billions of tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. So they were, they basically and then there was this very specific line item of just a mere $20 billion of our tax money that was parked in this, financial institution by the Biden EPA. It was purposely designed, according to Lee Zeldin, to obligate all of the money in a rush job with no oversight. Man, if you haven't been angry so far, if this is true, this is unbelievable. It's criminal, right? I mean, and I'm so tired of hearing from Chuck Schumer and all the Democrats about the unconstitutionality. I'm going to get to this here after the top of the hour, about the unconstitutionality of DOGE, about how DOGE is operating somehow in some not even gray area, but basically in direct violation of law, which is far from the truth. I'll explain to you exactly why that is when we come back. But the very people that are wagging their fingers and getting the vapors over DOGE are the folks that literally were heisting money out of our pockets. And Trump's people come in, they're like, hey, where's this money going? Oh, I don't know. Mumbo jumbo back and forth. I read a great story about this, basically, in an analysis by a tech savvy guy who said, look, Biden, Team Biden, when they were kind of buttoning down the hatches, assumed that Trump 2.0 would be the same as Trump 1.0. So they were fully prepared to weather the storm, and they did all this stuff, right, to hide money. And then they thought they were just going to shut everybody out. Oh, well, there's an explanation for this, and there's an explanation for that, and just talk. And I said this from the beginning, but I love that now people are talking about it, that getting the tech people in there, right, by Elon putting his, high level, super smart, and okay, they're young, right? One is as young as 18, the rest in their early 20s, getting these young tech savvy coders to come in, write code, and begin stripping away the data the numbers, because that doesn't lie, and very quickly identifying it. That's why there's panic in the ranks. That's why the Democrats are freaking out, because they literally, not, I'm not going to say hacked the mainframe. They've gotten into the holy grail. They've gone straight to the source. And the deep state scum that were planning all of this all along and were hoping to get away with it didn't see this coming at all. Now, I don't know if Lee Zeldin, if he was the head of the EPA and Trump's, first term, would ever within 3 weeks, he hasn't even been there, 2 weeks on the job, week and a half on the job, would be able to find this if it were not for the DOGE team. So when we come back, let me explain to you a little bit about this great misnomer. The DOGE is fictitious and doesn't have any power and all this stuff. It's all hocus pocus. Okay, be right back after this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show. My email, sam@samandashlaw.com, and on Twitter, now X, at What's Right Sam. Okay, some mythologies about Musk. Victor Davis Hanson, writing for American Greatness, gets at this and makes some very strong and important points about Musk's position, right? Because one of the things that is being said about Musk is that he has no legitimacy, right? That he has, he's unelected. He doesn't have, what he's doing is unconstitutional, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, let me just back up here for a second. And just in the big picture, in a super simplified way, the president is elected. There are certain positions in the government that Senate approval is required for. We're going through that right now. You see how that's working, right? Certain jobs that you have in the cabinet, for example, cabinet level positions, most of those require advice and consent of the Senate, FBI director, okay, et cetera. So then you have certain other positions in those departments where you hire people, okay, and take, for example, there were people inside the Biden White House, Biden administration, that were literally running the show. I mean, Biden was not there mentally. And so, for example, the first 2 years, Ron Klein, who was chief of staff, he was the president, okay? Jake Sullivan had probably more to do with deciding American foreign policy than Biden himself. I mean, I've just listed two completely unelected people who were, for much of Biden's administration running things. Okay, certainly wasn't Biden himself. So this entire, sort of absurd put down of Elon Musk that he has no authority, that he was unelected, that this is somehow unconstitutional, that this is, that this is just absurd. Okay. There are hundreds of government officials, and this is a point made by Victor Davis Hanson, that, get appointed to execute on an elected president's strategies, right? And his policies. He is, and this is what Victor Davis Hanson writes, Musk is as legally legitimate as the National Security Advisor and his National Security Council, none of whom require Senate confirmation. And then this is great because he says exactly what I just said. Does the left believe former National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who made decisions far more pivotal than Musk, had no authority to do so because he too was neither elected nor confirmed by the Senate? The answer, of course, is no. And I would argue that under Biden, when Biden was, well, just, had dementia, that really these unelected people were actually running the government, where here, I'll tell you, it's very clear that Trump is still calling the shots and he's very on top of things. So then, this idea about purposing of money, this is another part of this that just absolutely gets me, right? The idea, for example, of USAID, that it's illegal to end it. USAID was created by an executive order. JFK, President Kennedy, created USAID in 1961 by executive order. Okay? So now there's been some congressional legislation codifying foreign aid and allowing the president to execute the statute at his discretion. And then, that's come along both in the 60s and then as late as 1998, where there was another law that was passed creating kind of a formal agency, but still within the executive branch. It's under the president. And the law doesn't mandate that Trump, issued this aid. Trump gets to disperse the money as he sees fit. And he can keep whatever funds or programs he chooses. Right? So this is just a couple of things I needed to point out. Now, we go into some of this, like it's the idea of DOGE, right? DOGE is not a new agency, okay? Trump repurposed, is very clever. They repurposed an existing agency, the USDS, into something more useful. In Trump's executive order, it said this, and this is very important. Section 3, DOGE structure, reorganization and renaming of the United States Digital Service. The United States Digital Service is hereby publicly renamed as the United States DOGE Service, USDS. It has the same acronym, okay? And shall be established in the executive order. And the USDS, wait for it, was an Obamacare office created to make government software better. And they were essentially the software developer for the bureaucracy. And Trump comes along and he renames it, okay? But they even kept the same acronym. So repurposing an existing agency created, ironically, by Obamacare, a piece of legislation I think we all universally loathe, is fabulous. And it ensures its legality. And they can't do anything about it. I saw another lawsuit today drop about DOGE. And they can keep filing these lawsuits, and these crackpot judges can continue to issue injunctions and stays and other forms of temporary relief for the beleaguered Democrats, but it's not going to do them any good because this is all 100% legal. Trump this time around has surrounded himself by really top shelf talent. And I'm not here to say that Trump came up with this on his own. He did not. But Trump clearly understood that he knew what he wanted to do, and he tasked really smart people with figuring out how to do it and how to do it legally. And that, I think, is the best part of Trump 2.0. He has been through the ringer legally. And Trump, for many years when he was a developer, this was widely known about him, that he enjoyed a fair amount of litigiousness. Loved to use the courts, file lawsuits. And what happened to him after he left the presidency was nothing short of horrendous, right? So he had all of these lawsuits, all of these lawyers around him nonstop, because the onslaught was really something else. But in that process, he really, I believe, surrounded himself by really strong legal talent and was getting great legal advice. He left behind the likes of Rudy Giuliani. I love Rudy, did great work in New York, but not, the sharpest legal eagle by the time he was working for Trump as an attorney there with the wake of the 2020 election. The people that Trump has around him now are incredible. And so when it comes to DOGE, right, the USDS, which the predecessor of DOGE, the actual entity, right, that DOGE has become, was already there and was already funded. Congress funded it. So that's the best part about it. They can't even change that. And the reason, again, and this is why DOGE's work is different than having PricewaterhouseCoopers or Deloitte come in and audit the books. They are looking to fix this with technology. Side note, I think this may have been where some conflict developed between Vivek Ramaswamy and the Elon Musk team. I have to take a little bit of a break here. Well, I'm just reading the tea leaves. I don't have a clear idea on that. But remember, it was what Vivek said. Well, we had a difference in opinion. Elon Musk wanted to take a technology approach. I wanted to take a constitutional approach. I was kind of wondered what the hell did that mean. It seems that there were two factions. If you're going to take him at his word, there were two factions. And the faction that decided to go through using this existing Obamacare entity, this USDS, this software, program within the U.S. government, and use it to find, fraud, was the way that the Elon Musk team wanted to go. And, we'll see how this pans out in the courts. It'll probably end up somewhere in the Supreme Court at some point. Determine its legality, but it all seems to, meet constitutional and legal muster as best as I can see. So there we go. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Don't let anybody tell you that DOGE is a fiction. Just tell them they renamed an entity created by Obamacare. So you don't like DOGE? Thank Obama. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, the What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. So scores of firings apparently have begun at federal agencies. This, according to CNN, looks like the Department of Education, the SBA, and let's see, who else? Well, they've entered the building at the IRS. I guess that's next. All right, so far about 77,000 government workers have accepted the voluntary offer, the resignation program, the one where they get all those months of severance paid. But other people are just being terminated. Now, some of these, the voluntary buyout program, by the way, there was a union that sued and got an injunction to halt it briefly for a few days. A federal judge just lifted that hold and said basically that the union didn't have standing to bring the suit, meaning there was, the union represents all the members, but they apparently were not sufficiently close to this to be able to sue. So it's, that's out. And one of the interesting things that the judge said, by the way, in that particular decision is he said, look, there's an administrative process. There's a system set up for these employees to challenge a termination, a wrongful termination, or, a sort of a forced buyout. So I took that personally to be very good news. If the courts continue to rule that, hey, there's a system there, for you to get your job back if you want. There's some sort of tribunal. There's, under federal law, some kind of process by which to challenge a decision. That will drag on for years, but it doesn't change the fact that Trump can come in and get rid of people now. Boom, done, out the door. Frankly, it's all happening a lot faster than I thought. Now, the one of the judges here who has put in one of these ridiculous delays is a judge, John McConnell. And this is also the judge that now is facing impeachment. Representative Andrew Klein announced yesterday that he's drafting articles of impeachment accusing the judge of being a partisan activist. I explained yesterday, I'm going to just briefly repeat it, that I think this will go nowhere. And that's because, hell, we can't even get, barely 52 votes in the Senate for some of our nominees, RFK Jr., for example, Tulsi Gabbard. So how are you going to get to 67 votes? Because to impeach a judge, to impeach any federal officer, okay, to go through impeachment, the Constitution requires 2/3 of the members present of the Senate to get a conviction. So I would put a little asterisk there and say it's up to 67 people, right? Up to out of 100, right? And why am I saying up to? Well, if 3 of them are sick, then you need 2/3 of, 97. It's whoever shows up. So there it is. Okay. I'm just pointing this out here. Don't shoot the messenger. I would love to impeach these crooked judges that are making these nonsense rulings. I just don't think it's very realistic. Regardless, this judge is a nut. This judge's crazy. In a 2021 podcast interview, Judge McConnell said the law applies to the underprivileged where they are. This is interesting.
You're sentencing someone, when we talk about sentencing, that you have to take a moment and realize that this, middle-class white male privileged person needs to understand the human being that comes before us, that may be a woman and may be black, may be transgender, may be poor, may be rich, may be whatever, may have experiences that aren't yours, and you have to walk in their shoes and understand that the law applies to them where they are, and then you have to apply the law accordingly.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I guess if you've got a tranny that just committed 3 murders, you have to sort of apply the law differently than if you have a white, heterosexual, male, rich guy. That's wild. So yeah, this is the guy that's unilaterally blocking some of Trump's agenda. So, all of us voted for Trump, millions and millions of votes, 7 out of 7 swing states, a majority of the popular vote. And along comes Judge John McConnell and says, no, I don't think so. You want to talk about unethical, illegal, improper, obstructionist, anti-democracy behavior? It's this. And by the way, it wasn't that long ago that AOC, now one of the many shrill voices, decrying what Trump is doing and saying that he's acting unethically and illegally, and encouraged Biden to evade federal judges who are ruling against him. Remember this?
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
You know, I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
Wow. So you're saying, this is Anderson Cooper, you're saying the Biden administration should ignore the court. What does that look like? What do you mean? Well, AOC says, I think the interesting thing is that when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it's up to the Biden administration to enforce or to choose whether to not enforce such a ruling. Trump, for his part, says, I'm going to follow the law. But hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, food for thought. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right Show will be back after this. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. One of the best parts about DOGE, and I have to repeat this, if you're just joining us, DOGE had been authorized as the USDS, the United States Digital Service, in 2014 through Obamacare. Obamacare created DOGE. Trump and Musk came along and, well, Trump through executive order renamed it. And what is it? What was the USDS? What is DOGE now technically? Okay. Well, it's really originally an IT oversight program. And that's why DOGE has full access to all federal data systems. Every time you see one of these crackpot left-wing libo judges coming along going, oh, my goodness, privacy of information, like, can't do that. Like, It's literally the U.S. Digital Service created to make government more efficient via Obamacare. Don't like it? Take it up with Obama. And Congress, again, I'm going to repeat this. Not only does DOGE have this authority, it can't be defunded because it's not a new program. It's a repurposed one. It's already been funded. It's there. It exists. And it was passed by Congress and blessed by none other than the Supreme Court of the United States. So a decision celebrated for years and years by the left, decried by many conservatives, me included, now turned out to be an enormous blessing in disguise because Trump has taken it and just turned it into DOGE. Robbie, we should just create a list of all the ways Democrats have shot themselves in the foot over the years, right? We're going to do away with the filibuster. Right? I don't, Harry Reid, I know I'm new to Nevada. I know some of you, I love Alan Stock, but he speaks nicely about Harry Reid. Okay. Maybe I'm just not a nice person. Maybe that's the problem. But I always viewed Harry Reid as a suspicious person, to me at least. Got very wealthy in government. Okay. The guy spent his entire life basically in elected office and died a multimillionaire. So that kind of stinks to me. All right. Remember Rush? He'd call him Dirty Harry. But not like in the cool Clint Eastwood way. We all understood it. It was because Harry Reid was a scoundrel. Okay. He was a thief. So there it is. Okay, those were my thoughts on Harry Reid. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, that was the filibuster, right? He was so smart. We're going to do it with the filibuster. And then the Republicans got into power, and Democrats have been crying tears of soy ever since. It's beautiful to see. Obama literally built DOGE, and he created this IT backdoor. And you know what? I'm half convinced that, you know, this department was created for some nefarious reason by Obama, right? That they packaged it as, oh, we're here to fix bureaucracy. We're here to make government more efficient because we're going to update the software, rework the software, blah, blah, blah. None of that has happened. Funny anecdote. I guess Elon on the first week there, like, went into the government office to see what kind of computers they were on, and like almost died. Okay. Like, the equipment that the government uses is garbage. Okay. It's very simple because, you know, you're going to buy something for the government. It goes through layers and layers of decisions. It goes through proposals and this and that and back and forth and da-da-da. By the time you go, okay, we are buying a new computer system for the IRS or whoever, you know, the technology is old because, you know, tech development in the real world outside the walls of government buildings actually, you know, moves along at a relatively fast clip. So I guess Elon went in there and was like, what the hell is this? Like, this was, you know, it's like, you know, maybe like walking into, remember Radio Shack? Radio Shack, right? Am I, okay, for those of you kids out there, there used to be this store called Radio Shack that had all sorts of tech in it and sort of some, you know, hobbyist stuff, you know, for electronics, but they had computers when computers, you know, personal computers came around. Tandy, was that it? I forget the name. Tandy, I think, was there was a Radio Shack computer that they sold, and it was garbage. Okay. But they, you know, so that's how I picture, by the way, when I close my eyes and I think of what the IRS uses. That's what I think of. And the thing is, it's not funny because if you don't have good systems, your whole operation is inefficient. And I can speak to this with some, you know, degree of knowledge because, of course, I, you know, created a software program for attorneys. A lot of my competitors, by the way, use my software. And it's called CasePeer. You can look it up, CasePeer. Anyway, and so the software, you know, my competitors, but it's good. Like, it helps offices be more efficient. If you have bad software, if you have bad computers, not good. Now, I don't know, maybe you don't care what kind of computer system the IRS uses, but I slightly care, you know, that the tech that the FAA uses, you know. I was in an airplane yesterday coming back from the Newport office, was out there for a couple days, and look, I'm on the airplane, I'm thinking, my God, I just hope nothing happens, right? Can't help but going there with your mind these days. And I, you know, I want the best possible computers, the best tech tracking airplanes, you know. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we weren't even using GPS. It was all radar. We were using 1940s technology. It's just wild. And I'm over here, and I know people are ideological. I understand that. We all have our politics. You know, mine just, you know, happens to be aligned with yours, but not everybody agrees with this. But it's sort of baffling to me that, you know, if I was a Democrat and I thought that Trump was just, you know, the big bad man, orange man, you know, I would think, well, hell, I still want to live. You know, I want to get on an airplane and survive. You know, I have some love of myself motivating me to let a guy like Elon Musk that builds, you know, missiles that land back on Earth and cars that drive themselves, that he might be, you know, the right person to lead the government tech office. But, you know, what do I know? These people would literally cut their noses off to spite their face. That's what they, you know, that's how this works. So, but yeah, look, I mean, the best example of this is, It's not even, it's actually, Robbie, it's worse than the Radio Shack computers. Because the anecdote, and we didn't get to it yesterday, the anecdote that Musk shared about the government retirement system is all you need to know about the state of our ridiculous bureaucracy. Apparently, to retire somebody, you need to go and physically use paper, put it in a manila file, and put it down in a limestone mine into like some sort of vault underground, like a bat cave. This is crazy.
We are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this, obviously there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, well, let's, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else, and you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
It's wild. They literally have a person down there. I saw pictures of them riding around on these tricycles. Like they have little ding, 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 little just like, I mean, it's cute, right? What we need to do is turn this into a tourist attraction, okay? Or better yet, put Mitch McConnell down there and just leave him. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Be right back after this. Well, friends, things are looking interesting in the Middle East. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I want to get to this today because, Trump now saying that there's like a 99% chance that America can work with Egypt on relocating the Gazans. So this is an interesting development. And as that is occurring, it appears that Hamas has blinked. I saw just before we went on air that Hamas is pledging to release the next 3 hostages that would be, in line with keeping with their original agreement with Israel. And I have to, I gotta say this, like Trump, he's doing all of this right. So he's met with the King of Jordan. They had a very nice meeting. Okay. That went positively. Trump is meeting with Egyptian officials next. Okay. There's going to be, they met on Tuesday, King Abdullah from Jordan praised Trump. He said, I truly believe that with all the challenges that we have in the Middle East, I finally see somebody that can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to the region. Very glad we're here. And Cairo also said, Egypt said they're going to play a role in the reconstruction. So there it is. Now, Lebanon, it's a country that not too long ago was fully in the grips of Hezbollah. Then Hezbollah, well, a couple things happened, right? Hezbollah, long funded by Iran as a proxy fighting force, lethal fighting force in the region, got paged. So beep, beep, kaboom. And Israel just like wiped out on the eve of a major operation, wiped out most of their leadership. Not all of them were killed. They were just crippled, right? So it's like a parade of broken Islamists, right? They're all missing fingers and limping along. They're not really, you're not going to be the, premier fighting force if you've got stumps. So that happened, and they've now got a new prime minister, Nawaf Salam, and he said that Trump's plan to displace Palestinians is reprehensible and unacceptable. We support a two-state solution. But this is what he kind of has to say. Again, I think there's a big difference between public pronouncements and private ones. Trump's big demand to move everybody out of Gaza is just anchoring in a negotiation. You start big. It's what you do. You don't ever come in and tell people exactly what you want. You'll never get it. You walk in and you say, I want the moon, and throw in, the stars and give me the whole galaxy. And then they say, no, that's crazy. And you settle on ultimately what it is that you want. Now, what is that? All right. Trump wants peace. And I think obviously the idea of a two-state solution is ludicrous. Okay, you're just going to have a terror state in the region that will be forever a thorn in everybody's side, okay? It's not going to be a state that just attacks Israel. They're going to attack any stable country, Jordan included, in the region. So it's going to be this little pariah leper colony that's in the middle of, wherever they put it. And it's going to be awful for everybody involved, including for the people themselves. So getting Egypt on board and Jordan on board and rethinking this and maybe moving away from a two-state solution is interesting. Long-term resettlement of Gazan refugees is the key component. Imagine now, just short-term, imagine you're Hamas. You've been given an ultimatum that Saturday, all hostages out or else. Noon on Saturday. I mean, it's coming up. Lebanon and Iran are weaker than ever. Hezbollah, your sort of ally in the region, is not doing particularly well. The UN now has turned against your Houthi allies because, again, if you're Hamas, you rely on the Houthis. They were kind of keeping people busy over there in Yemen, but they just, killed some UN peacekeepers, and so it's a problem. Egypt, Jordan, meeting with Trump in the White House, playing patty cake, things appearing to be good and all. That will make them nervous. Israel calls up its reserves. I mentioned this yesterday. Netanyahu declaring if Hamas does not return hostages by noon on Saturday, parroting basically or repeating what Trump is saying, then the ceasefire will end and IDF will resume intense fighting. I mean, look, if you're, just freaking out. This is the reality that they're in. I saw somebody say that the two-state solution died on October 7th, and I'm, if I was in Israel, I'd be inclined to agree with that. They kidnapped only. Yemen kidnapped the Houthis, kidnapped 8 UN officials. The head of the UN, Antonio Guterres, quote, I order all UN humanitarian assistance to Yemen to halt immediately. On October 7th, Hamas took 251 Israeli hostages and killed over 1,200 people. The same man, the head of the UN, Antonio Guterres, quote, the collective must not be punished with humanitarian assistance in Gaza. Interesting how that, how that works a little bit differently when it's your own people that have been abducted. The UN is where I stand on the UN is the UN ought to be abolished. I wish DOGE could do something about the UN. You've got to admit, somewhere Trump because he's a New York guy, okay? And if you've been to New York and you know where the UN headquarters are, it's a big chunk of real estate, okay? And look, yeah, Trump's a New York guy. He's also a real estate developer. I guarantee you Trump has made the joke once or twice or 1,000 times, possibly, that the UN ought to be shut down and we ought to sell the land for, redevelop it and build luxury condos. I think it'd be great. What is the UN good for? What gets solved in the UN? What good comes of it? See, the UN actually, there's a parallel here between what DOGE is uncovering at USAID and, the inside the American bureaucracy, all the spending on liberal pet causes. That's what the UN is. Yes, the UN is an 18-acre site in Midtown Manhattan. Robbie is reminding me of this. It's overlooking the East River. Value could easily exceed $5 billion in just land. But if you're Letitia James, it's only worth $12 million, Robbie. Okay? Please note that. Oh, boy. Kathy Hochul canceled her visit to the White House after she got sued by Pam Bondi. Did you see that? Canceled her visit. One of the terms of settlement, the New York Post says, ought to be the firing of Alvin Bragg, which, of course, Hochul could do. So this is going to be fun. Folks, we're just 3.5 weeks in. Unbelievable. I end every show saying this. What a miracle it is to be alive right now. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.